Welcome to the Show Me the Way podcast. I am your host, Andrea Miller, and I'm so excited to bring this show to you. Show Me the Way is a podcast dedicated to exploring the journeys of those who have faced adversity and found themselves on unexpected paths. We will have meaningful, thoughtful conversations about challenges we have faced and how we discovered and forged new direction. Prepare to be inspired and to uncover your own strength as you listen to relatable and motivating stories. Life has a way of twisting and turning, and we often need a fresh perspective to understand how to navigate. Let's show each other the way. If you're searching for more joy in your life, this episode is exactly what you need. I'm joined by my dear friend Amy Berry, whose warmth and wisdom shine through, even in the face of deep personal loss. After losing both of her parents in recent years, Amy has chosen to carry forward their beautiful legacy, one rooted in love, inclusion, and finding the good in every moment. In this heartfelt conversation, Amy shares how her family continues to live out her parents' values, welcoming others with open arms, cherishing time together, and always pulling up one more chair to the table, whether it's for exchange students or unexpected holiday guests. She reminds us that joy isn't something that happens by chance, it's something we can choose. This episode is a touching reminder to be peacemakers, to prioritize the people we love, to create a space for joy, and to look for the good. Welcome back to the Show Me the Way podcast. I have so much joy in my heart today welcoming our beautiful guest, Amy Berry. I met Amy a few years ago through a mutual friend and direct sales. Amy's a busy wife, a mom of 3 active kiddos. She was part of a network marketing company for quite some time and after some changes has now moved on to new adventures. She is a family person to the core, and she has taught me so much about what it means to celebrate time with loved ones. She and her family have been through a lot in the past couple of years, but she has continued to walk her path with light and faith and hope, and she shines and brings light to every room she enters. I want her to share whatever's on her heart, but no matter what she speaks about, I know we will all be moved and gain even more perspective through her words. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thanks, Andrew. That was so sweet. Thank you so much. You are just a delight to have in my life as well.
Thank you. This is like a love fest right now, and it probably is going to continue throughout the whole session. So appreciate that. So as we begin, kind of do this every single time. I say a little bit about the guest, but then I let them share a little bit more about themselves with our listeners. So, Amy, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you?
Sure. Well, I am currently reside in Canton. I grew up in Lansing, so I am a Midwestern girl for sure. But before I got married, I grew up in Lansing, went to Michigan State. Yay! I know some people
Yeah, some people don't like that.
right? Yep.
Some of
But,
us wear maize
yep.
and blue.
But we can still be friends. We can
Yes,
still be
yes, we can.
um and yeah, then I got a job in I will say in my childhood I was very fortunate that my mom and dad had a lot of exchange students growing up. I was so fortunate to travel and go to Europe quite a bit. When I was in first grade, third grade, fifth grade, 16, 18, my parents really tried to bring the world to us through having exchange students and through travel. So when I got my first job, it was here in Michigan, but then I had an opportunity to move with the company. So I lived in Salem, Massachusetts for about 4 or 5 years, which is an exciting town. I love lobster, I love seafood, and Salem was always exciting in October's for sure. And then I moved to Pennsylvania before realizing that I really am a Michigan gal and my family was all in Michigan. So I moved back to Michigan. I actually took a step back with my company because I thought that being home with family meant more to me than money and anything else. So I came back to Michigan and then met my husband and we have 3 kids and now reside in Canton. So that's a little bit about me.
That is great. Like I tell people, I'll put friends on here and I'll learn things I never knew. So thank you for sharing all that. And
Sure.
you did say that your parents exposed you to other countries and other cultures. Don't you have a sister that lives in Australia? Is that what you were telling me?
Well, yeah, I do say she's my Australian sister. Um, Biologically, she is not my sister. We had really, honestly, about 40 exchange students growing up. My mom and dad started when I was 4, which any of us that are parents, I think, how do you bring a stranger that's a teenager into your house for a school year, a high schooler, when you have toddlers? Like, I just think about that all the time and think how brave my parents were to do that. And then not only would, and so my sister was 2. So I was 4 and my sister was 2. And then more kids needed homes because people weren't doing this. And so then my mom and dad got so that they would take 2 exchange students every year, not just 1, but 2, and would try very hard to get different cultures. So we would do Europe and South America, or Australia and South America, or Australia and Europe, or Japan. And so that we had different cultures, and that not only would their children be learning, but these exchange students would have an opportunity to learn from each other. They would have a brother or a sister that was from this other country. So, yeah, my mom and dad always said it was kind of their way of bringing about some world peace. My mom actually was an exchange student when she was 17, maybe. And it was when exchange programs kind of started. My mom was born in 46. So, kind of one of the things that happened after the war and stuff like that was Germany and America started doing an exchange to try to help mend the feelings people had about the war. And so my mom was an exchange student, and so she had that in her heart and wanted to pass that on. Yes, so I do have my Australian sister. We see each other at least every 2 years, more so because she's coming here. I've only been there 3 times, but we do try to go back and forth to see each other. My Swiss brother and his family were very close with him as well. He was here 3 times in the last 2 years because we had weddings and different family events, and he and his family came for Christmas, and we're going to see him this summer. And so it is really nice. And I mean, really, those they are like my siblings. My Australian sister's daughter just got married, and my sister was able to go over. Unfortunately, I was not, which was heartbreaking. But just like a sister would, my sister and Tony went together to get their hair done and their makeup done when Tony's daughter is the bride, because she said, "You're my sisters." She doesn't have any other sisters. So it is a love. She is my sister.
That is so cool. And it really does help me see even more why you are so close to family, why family is so important to you, and also why you have such an open heart. Because you're one of those people, the first time I met you, we hugged and it was like, okay, we're friends for life. There's just some people that have that impression on you and you just feel really comfortable around right away. And it's because of all this perspective and background. And that is just amazing that your parents brought that to you. That's really cool. You said, I've only been to Australia 3 times. There's people that will never go to Australia in their lifetime. I would love to go there. That's why
Yeah.
I brought that
Oh,
up
I encourage it.
specifically.
Yeah, it's wonderful. The people are so great. So definitely get there. Yeah, I was fortunate that in 2019 I took my whole family went. So my kids went as well because again, we're going to see family. So
Right.
like, it makes sense. Like you want to go and see your family. So,
Yeah, that's a great excuse and a great
yeah.
reason to see the world. So cool. As I told you before, I like to have very casual conversations and you just never know where you're going to go because sometimes you'll bring something up and it causes me to ask a question and then we just kind of go in that direction. So, thank you for sharing all of that.
Yes.
So let's get back into the Show Me the Way podcast. This has been an opportunity and a platform for people. I keep saying this, mainly women, but it's not just for a women audience. My husband was on here, and I do have some other men lined up. So it is not just about women; it's just about people in general sharing times that they thought their lives were going in one direction, they were on one path, and they had to pivot. And some people have very specific stories that they want to share. Some people just say, geez, I've pivoted 25 times. And because of this decision, it led me to all of these other decisions. And here's where I am today. And here's the perspective I've learned. So I really don't tell any of our guests exactly what to speak about. Amy and I know each other quite well. And we talked a little bit before this to kind of determine which direction we wanted to go in. Amy, like me, has worn many hats. Not like me, has traveled a lot more than me. But she, just being a mom, just being a wife, you have moments in time where you thought you were in one direction and you needed to go down a different path. So I am going to let Amy speak whatever is on her heart. And like I said in my intro, whatever she talks about, I know we will all be moved and we'll all have some new perspective after today's episode. So with that, Amy, put you on the spot, but definitely whatever's on your heart. If there's a specific story you'd like to share, if you just kind of want to talk about things you've experienced recently, we can just get into it. And like I said, you're going to teach us all something. I just know it.
Well, thanks. It's so sweet. Like, yeah, it's hard to know exactly where to start. I agree that, there's been so many times in my life that things have come up and changed, and, we all have to pivot. Now we use that's like the key word now, that we all pivot since the pandemic. But, I think kind of your whole life you're doing that. I was just recently talking to somebody about how, when you're pregnant and you have a baby, you have the birth plan. And it's kind of even funny. I don't know if they still make you do that, because it's so rare that you get to follow that birth plan. So it kind of like sets you up for having to pivot, because it's not necessarily your ideal. I will have to say, in the last 2 years, I have lost both of my parents. And so that has been a huge change in my life, for sure, because I'm very much a family person and my parents were very much family people. But I think it has definitely taught me a lot of things and shown me some things that my parents just did, that now you can realize, like, wow, like it really took them effort. It was a choice that they made, and I can see the outcome now. And so certainly these exchange students that we had, is one of them, because I mean, it's not like they got money to take care of these kids. Like, any of us that have teenagers know that it is not cheap to have a teen, and they all were involved in activities and different things, and none of them had a driver's license. So the sacrifices that my parents made to make those things happen. But because of that, they have shaped myself and my brothers to be who we are. And they have made us very accepting of all kinds of people. And I think that all of us have the ability to find the good in people and situations, because there is good in everything. I talked about my Australian sister and my Swiss brother, but my German brother and I, we still are in communication. And he grew up in Germany and now he's married to an Argentinian and he lives in Argentina. So that's on my bucket list, to go visit Sven. And Bruno from Spain, he wanted to live with us and we wanted him to live with us, because he was with a different family and it wasn't quite working. It didn't work out. So he just spent all the time with us. And here I am. I don't even want to count how many years it is since high school, but we're still friends and we're still communicating. We talk about coming to visit, and he called my mom and dad mom and dad. So when my mom and dad were struggling, I was reaching out to him and, how's mom and how's dad? That is from my parents, that we have these connections all over. Like I said, I feel like since they've been gone, I just see even more how the choices that they made and the sacrifices that they made, so that they didn't necessarily have millions in the bank, because they spent money on people rather than putting it in the bank. They spent money on experiences, they spent money on enjoying life, but enjoying it in kind of a hands-on learning type of way. We took trips to Washington, D.C. really every spring break, because we always had exchange students. And so my mom and dad always felt it was very important for them to see the Capitol and the memorials and things like that. And so that's what we did. We took trips. My kids have been there a couple of times, but I feel like I'm kind of Washington, D.C.'d out, because I did it all the time when I was a kid. So I have one sister and two brothers that are biological. Okay. I'm so fortunate that to this day, even after two parents have passed, now my mom was just 3 months ago, so we're still going through everything with the estate. And again, as I said, they didn't necessarily have lots of money, but even though they didn't have that, there's still all those things that you have to close and figure out. And I'm so fortunate. A lot of people would say to me and my siblings, "Oh my goodness, now that your mom is gone, just be aware that you and your siblings are probably going to have problems. And you and your siblings, like all these things that have been kind of hidden, are probably going to come out now." And I'm so glad to say, knock on wood, like we have had nothing like that. Nothing. And I hope that everybody's wrong. I don't see anything and I can't see that that's happening because I feel like my whole life we have been just brought up that, life isn't fair. And yes, we try to treat all of our kids kind of the same. But on the flip side, different kids have different needs. And I feel like my parents were very much that way. And so now, I feel like my siblings and I are very good about, and again, I don't know an example because it's not like my mom had a car or something. But if my brother needed that, it's not like, well, we have to figure out how to divide it by 4, and are you gonna, like, pay us our portion of it? Or we're very much like, "No. You know what? It needs to be used, somebody needs it, like, great. You need it, you take it." Thank goodness we don't keep track of who got what, and my parents didn't do that either. I don't even want to think about it or pay attention to it because I don't need to. Yes, I'm sure my brother and we're 12 years apart. So that's pretty significant. And so when he was in high school, I was out of the house. So his needs were definitely different than mine when I was in high school. And so I can choose to be bitter that he might have got some things that I didn't, but thankfully, that is not the way my parents brought us up, and so I'm happy for him, and I'm not jealous, and I I never even think to be upset about something like that. And, whenever my brother or sister, whenever there were a few of us that were arguing about something, I know that my mom and dad, probably more so I remember my mom, because my dad was working a lot, would just say, "Well, somebody has to be the peacemaker." Like somebody has to be the peacemaker. We're Christians, so my mom would say, "Be the peacemaker of God." But somebody has to do that. And sometimes she would just walk away and be like, "You figure it out. One of you has to be the peacemaker." And I feel like that's really how we live our lives. I feel like nowadays, unfortunately, sometimes people would rather be right or have the final say whether they're right or not than just be willing to say, "Okay, our relationship or what we have together is more important than me having the last word or me being right." And I'm so thankful and grateful that my mom and dad have given us a legacy of peace and being kind and being respectful and knowing that you can be the bigger person. It doesn't have to be something that you have to broadcast and everybody can see. You just have to know in your heart that you're doing the right thing, and that's all that matters.
I think all of that is such a homage to your parents. I love that you have such a dedication to them and that how you live your life even today. You're an adult, you have your own children, and you still live your life abiding by what they taught you and what they brought to you. And I think that is so special and so important. And I think a lot of us tend to focus on the negative things instead of saying, wait a minute, what about all the very positive things that we learn from them? And I love that you said different kids have different needs. I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, you know that just by being a mom. I have 2 boys. The pregnancies were like exactly the same. There's so many similarities, but boy, were those 2 babies completely different. And to this day, they're just night and day. Most moms will say that. And then you made me really think about my sisters and me. We are so different, and we were raised by the same parents. And my parents to this day are different with each one of us based on our needs. So I love the positivity and just how you live your life still based on what your parents taught you. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. And it's so nice to see, which again, I've seen more and more since they've passed. And I don't know if it's because it's that they've passed that more people are coming out, or more people are saying, like, oh my gosh, like, your mom and dad influenced me so much. Your mom and dad, and this will make me tear up. So, but, and I just wish that people would say that more to each other when you're alive.
That's so true. I really have started to lead that way. Like when you think something about somebody, tell them. Tell them now. I couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah, because I just think, I mean, it's so nice for us to hear, but boy, it would have been so nice for them to hear too. And I think deep down they knew it, because that's why they lived their life the way they did. But I would say that to us now, when somebody does something that really touches your heart, let people know. It was so fun. My mom was, before she had us, well, and I think after she had me, she still taught a little bit. She was a teacher, and when she passed away, well, she went into hospice first. My mom had cancer and went into hospice, and I put it on Facebook, and then some people reached out and said, "Oh, I would love to, send her a card or whatever. Can I get an address?" We had, I think, at least 4 cards from when she taught 2nd to 5th grade over 50 years ago, from students that said, "Oh my goodness, she was just like one of the best teachers." And one had lost, think, her dad. And she talked about how my mom and dad took her and her sisters out to dinner and out roller skating, while her mom, like, just kind of dealt with things and gave them something fun and special to do. And I mean, this lady is, I don't know, 60, 70 years old.
And that stuck with her.
Yes. And she said, "I just remember how good your parents were to us when we were going through such a hard time." And I think, and that is 100% the way my parents were. And the way that I want to make sure we are, and my children, these are life lessons for us. Life goes by so fast, and we really need to take time to invest in people. We really need to slow down and look around and find the good in things. This is another thing that, if you get a chance, this National Geographic's photographer DeWitt Jones, I just really love, he has a TED Talk, and he talks about finding the good. Find the good. There's good in everything. I heard a study one time of, you take 10 people and you divide them in two, and you buy a bouquet of flowers, and you put the flowers in a room, and don't let anybody see them. Divide them into five, groups of 5. The first 5, you have them go in, look at the flowers, and they have to write 5, 10 things that are, beautiful, wonderful, right about these flowers. And so everybody's going to look at them, and they're going to say, "Oh, they're so vibrant, and they smell so nice." And, whatever it is, they're just beautiful. And they write down 5 good things about this bouquet of flowers. And so then you take them out, you don't let them talk to the next group. The next group comes in, and you say, "Okay, find 5 things that are wrong with this bouquet." Well, it could be brighter. It, could smell more, or some of these leaves are drooping. I mean, you can find 5 things wrong. And so the choice is yours when you go into any situation. Are you going to choose to find the 5 things that are right? Or are you going to choose to focus on the things that are wrong? And I think nowadays, it doesn't even have to be 5 things. We can look at a situation, and there's 5 things that are right, but there's one thing that bothers us, or that isn't the way that we wanted. And so we focus so much on that one thing that we forget about the 5 things that are right. It could be a situation about us or our husbands or our kids or our friends or our parents or our siblings or the school. And I think as a mom, we want to fix things. And I get that. But I think we also just need to make sure we're stepping back and looking at the big picture. And are we focusing on the negative? Because sometimes that seems to be the easiest thing to do. And it has the loudest voice sometimes. But again, my parents really tried to show us and in their legacy to focus on what's good, focus on the positive because it's there.
Right.
It's there.
Yeah, I love that you said that today. I say this almost every time. I said it in my previous interview the other day. I believe in God and I believe in God winks. And I think that these interviews and the days that we schedule them, even if it takes us a couple days to like figure out when, it's always at the right time. So it's crazy that you just said what you said because I just pulled up what I put in my Instagram stories this morning, perspective shifts that will change your life. And there's 5 things here. Instead of saying I have to, I get to. I failed. I learned. It fell apart. It fell into place. I messed up or I grew from this. This is rejection. This is redirection. So I just put that in my stories today, and it really goes hand in hand with what you were just saying.
Yeah, that's great. Exactly. Exactly. It's all perspective. And I'm not saying it's easy. It is not easy. And there are some days where I fall to it too and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like I just can't stop being upset about this."
And I think that it's so easy on social media to point out the negative and to just say whatever you want, but take that extra difficult step and find the good. I love that.
Yes, always find the good. And I just think, again, it's something that thankfully my mom, especially, but my mom and dad had taught us from an early age. When you wake up in the morning, you can decide, is it going to be a good day or a bad day? And again, some days we have to have those bad days. I'm not saying those are never going to happen, but I'm saying that we want to have more good days than bad days. And it's not always easy, but it is something to focus on, to strive for. You have to practice it. You have to practice it. And I
Mhm.
feel so thankful and grateful that that was something that my parents really instilled in us. One more quick thing that I want to say, because I just feel like I want to tell everybody this. And you and I talked about it, but I just want to share it with everyone. Having lost both my parents, I just want everybody to think about a couple things. One is take pictures with your parents. Take pictures alone with you and your dad, you and your mom. It's so easy to get the kids in there and have kids with grandpa and grandma, but do it with your kids too, because when they're gone, sometimes you just want that picture of you with that person. And it is heartbreaking when you go back to look and find that, and then it's not there because you're always taking it with the kids or everybody else together. So that is just a little bit of advice I'd like to give since having lost my parents. I was better at it with my mom because I certainly saw it with my dad when we were looking to find pictures. And sadly I don't have very many, but talk about a God wink. I have a great little selfie of us together at my nephew's football game. And really, it was God. Like, my mind just said, "Ooh, take a selfie with dad." And I'm so grateful that I did because that really is like, I, I mean, I got one at my wedding, I think, but I don't really have pictures of just me and my dad. So I was better with my mom because I learned from that. And the same with my kids individually, because sometimes grief it takes on all kinds of different things. And sometimes you just want that picture of you alone with that person. The other thing I would say, as I'm talking about advice that my parents have given me and things that they've taught me, I learned this through my dad and did it more with my mom. There are lots of books out there that are like questions, 300 questions about you, or 100 questions to ask your mom, or 100 questions for your dad, or whatever. And I just would recommend that because even with my dad, it's been 2 years in February for my dad. But now, you start to think of things that they said about their childhood, or, remember that story when, like, was it this or was it that? And it's just a good reference for you to have. What was their favorite color and what's their favorite childhood memory? Not all people like to sit there and talk about themselves and do that. So you ask, a question here and a question there and just write it down. And even if you only get 15 to 20, you're going to be so grateful to have that later. That would be my advice of a couple of things to do now, and to make sure you're doing it every time you see them. I would take pictures and do it because it brings back memories and you'll be so thankful and grateful that you have it.
I think that is such great perspective. As I'm listening to you talk, what I love about this episode and this conversation is that it's actually more introspective. So, a lot of the conversations I've had on the show have been, I went through this and here's how I pivoted, here's how I transitioned, here's how my life looked different. You instead, you went through some very difficult losses in the last couple of years, one very recent, but you're really not saying, like, since that happened, here's what I had to do. You're saying, these are all the things that I learned from my parents and that I'm holding on to now that I've lost them. And I just think it's a wonderful episode and a very different outlook. And I love that. You're looking back and you're reminding us about things if we still have our parents that we can hold on to and gather now, so that when we have to face what you've had to face, we can do it stronger. And I just really love the way that you're taking this show, because I think it's not always a specific point in time where this is when I had to pivot. You're just saying, like, this is why I became the person I am. And here are some things that I would give to other people, or I would hope for other people to be able to enjoy so that they can do the same thing. So I love where you took this episode.
Thank you. Yeah,
Of
thank you
course.
so much. There are opportunities, and I just don't want people to miss them. Another thing that I would like to kind of challenge people to do, and I know for some people it's more in your comfort zone than others, but I didn't even really notice that I did this because I think it's human nature for me. And so I understand it's not human nature for everybody. But my oldest daughter is a freshman. And I think it was probably about 2 years ago. I was talking to one of the moms of a boy in her grade. I adore her. Her name's Anne. She's fantastic. I really enjoy her. We don't spend enough time together. But somehow she came up to me and said, "We are friends because at that kindergarten orientation, I walked into the school. I knew no one. I'm looking around. I don't know what to do. You caught my eye and had a chair next to you and said, 'You can come and sit here.' And she said, 'So I did.' And we introduced ourselves. And we're still friends. And I think, what a missed opportunity. If we wouldn't have done that, we might not have ever met because our kids aren't necessarily friends. He's a boy, she's a girl. They don't do the same things. I know I've seen the post before, but whether you're a girl or a boy, like, be the one who invites the person to sit at the lunch table with you. I just challenge you to do that because it is so hard to walk in there when you don't know anybody. That's hard for anybody, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. That's so hard. That could be your new best friend. That could be one of your new ride or die gals or guys. And so I would just challenge you, instead of looking down at your phone and ignoring everybody until whatever you're at starts, look up, look around, make eye contact, and be willing to say, I will say that is one thing my parents did teach me. And so that's why I knew it. There is always room for somebody else at the table. Always. My mom and dad, I can't even tell you how many times, like my mom used to say, she wouldn't, put out the tables. She wouldn't set the table until right before dinner because she would count the heads of who was in the house, and that's how many plates she'd put down. And my mom and dad were absolutely like that. Absolutely. There is always room for more at the table. Always. And it is something that I have seen as I have gotten older too, that is not something that everybody feels. And I get that, and we like to be private and stuff, but I would encourage you to always find room at the table for someone. Always find room. There's always room for one more at the table. I honestly don't know how to be anything but that because, again, that's part of my mom and dad's legacy. And it doesn't matter. My mom and dad honestly didn't care if you were FO, or honestly, there was a guy up at deer camp that he was an ex-con. And, sometimes we would be a little bit like, okay, like we're trying to be comfortable, but we know his past. But my mom and dad didn't care. Everybody has a purpose. Everybody's a good person. Everybody needs a chance. And so very much so. It doesn't matter who you are. There's room for you at the table. And I would encourage people, it's not too late. It's not too late that you can change your perspective and look up, make eye contact, and invite somebody to sit next to you.
This is such a special episode. I'm smiling from ear to ear. I wish I would have met your parents because if there were more people that had that mentality, this life would be just even better. So, thank you for sharing all these beautiful stories and memories about them. Like I said, it's an homage to them. And you made me think of a couple things. So, first of all, the second episode that we had for Show Me the Way was Everybody Needs an Amy. And I was referring to another friend of mine named Amy. There must
Yes,
be
which I
something in
know
the
her.
name. Yes, I
Yes,
know you know her. But the way you
yes.
described your situation with that woman is exactly what Amy does. Like she looks up and she's there to support and help. And that's how we met. We have a very similar story. Like she drove me to the zoo when it was a first grade field trip. She's like, "Sure, whoever needs a ride, I'll have the van." And it took that ride for us to become like close friends forever. Like I never see a time in my life where she won't be there. So there must be something in the name. Everybody needs an Amy. Everyone
Um,
needs somebody like that. And just the way you described it is exactly the way I felt upon meeting you as well. So I loved that. But the other thing is talking about memories and creating these things and holding on to all these memories and understanding how they helped shape who you are today. I think that's so important. I just read a book and there was something in there about erasing memories, like when people are gone, you have to do something to hold on to their memories instead of letting them be erased or forgetting about these people that have shaped who you are. So I love how you keep their memories alive. I'm making the assumption that you probably continue to talk about these things with your family and your kids so that they'll keep their grandparents' memories alive. And that is a segue into, do you think that your children have learned from them and from you too? And do you think that they try to live a similar life? I know they're young.
yes, absolutely. I think that I see it in them, and it is who I am. And my husband is very good and supportive of this life, even though he's very much an introvert. And I'm so thankful and grateful that, again, my siblings are. My mom and dad treated my two sister-in-laws, my husband and my brother-in-law, really the same as their sons and daughters. And would say, "This is my daughter, my daughter, my daughter, my daughter, my son, my son, my son, my son." And sometimes when they were like in the hospital or whatever, the nurses would be like, "Okay, like what? Like, but I thought they were married. Like, so how did your son marry your daughter? Like, what?" But my mom and dad, well, my dad especially was very adamant. He was like, "No, like they are all my daughters and my sons. There is no difference. There is no difference." And so again, my children have seen that not only with us, but with their aunts and uncles, of how my parents just, treated family and one another. The hard part is sometimes we are so inclusive that it's very hard sometimes for my kids even to understand, well, I don't understand why they wouldn't want everybody, or I don't understand why they wouldn't include everybody. And so I definitely think they see it. And they also see that unfortunately it's not necessarily the norm, but absolutely the influence of my mom and dad is trickling down to not only my kids, but my nieces and nephews. My sister's kids are away at college, and for sure they have come home and said, "Wow, like I didn't realize what we had was what it was." And it comes down really from my mom and dad's parents as well. that we have close relationships with my aunts and uncles and my cousins. And so even that aspect, we're really very fortunate. But I'll tell you what, again, it takes work. It's a choice. And sometimes it's a choice to bite your tongue and be the peacemaker because the relationship is more important than being right.
I couldn't agree more. I just think there's so many nuggets of great information here that we can all use. And again, it's a little bit different. We didn't talk about a specific time, but we just really had such great memories and great perspective. And it all comes down to where you learned it, how your life was shaped through your amazing parents. So I think it's beautiful that you were able to share all of that. And I loved your advice. We were talking about it in person a couple of weeks ago when I was preparing to go see my parents. I'm very fortunate because, as I expressed, aside from you, I have several other friends who have lost their parents, and we're getting to these ages where you're hearing it more and more. And I'm so very blessed that still have them here. So I took a lot of the pieces of advice while I was in Florida with them. In fact, I even went on Amazon and bought 2 of those books right after Amy and I talked about, asking your parents questions, and at first I brought them out and they thought, "What is this? What is Andrea doing now?" Because out of it's myself and I have 2 sisters, so out of the 3 of us, I'm the one who always, wants to plan things and wants to have little games, and they tease me. So they're like, "What are you doing now?" And I said, "Oh, I've got some great questions." And at first they weren't sure, but as soon as I started asking questions about their past, things that they remembered when they were kids, or a favorite memory they had of being a parent, or what it felt like to know you were going to become a dad. And when they started answering the questions and my son and my husband were around, it was just fun to hear them and to just spark this whole conversation that wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have done that. So I think you are spot on. That's an important thing and something that's pretty easy for us all to do. You don't have to go on Amazon and buy the books, but you can just start asking questions, things that you might not know the answer to, or maybe you didn't hear it from their lips. So I thought that was a really great idea, and I was excited that I used it. So people, take that idea with you and take Amy's perspective and her thoughts, because life is so short. And that's another reason we're doing this podcast, just to remind everybody that you don't have that much time on this earth, and every moment you spend with your loved ones is precious.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you enjoyed that. And I'm so glad that you did that. Like that just warms my heart.
Yeah,
That's
so
so great.
see, you
Yeah.
are making an impact on a daily basis, and I know that your parents are looking down and they're so proud of you and how you've handled all of this with grace. So, thank you for sharing what's been difficult. So, I appreciate you doing that on a podcast like this. I think people can learn, and I think sometimes people are reluctant to share their stories, but you got to keep the memories alive, and you have to speak what's on your heart. So, thank you for doing that.
Yes. Well, this has been so much fun. What a pleasure to be a part of this. And yeah, I hope that people listening are able to take a nugget away, and that that nugget will bring them more joy and bring their family more joy, because it's just all those little changes that we can make that make us have a brighter day. And I really do want people to have joy.
I love that. Well, you certainly brought it today. I really appreciate the find the good. I don't think we think about that enough. So I'm encouraging everyone who listens to this to go find the good today. And don't be afraid to tell people if you find the good in them, what kind of impact they had or how they made you feel. That's what I try to do at the beginning of each episode when I describe my relationship with the person. I want them to hear how important they are to me and why I wanted them here. So hopefully you got a little good out of this, and we definitely got a lot of good from what you shared. Thank you so much. Can't wait to drop this, and I appreciate you being on.
Thanks so much, Andrea. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you for joining me for the Show Me the Way podcast. I truly appreciate you tuning in to today's episode about overcoming adversity and finding your path. I hope it brought you new insights, empowered you with perspective, and inspired you to find joy in your journey. If this episode touched your heart, don't forget to leave a quick review, as it will help us reach and motivate more people. Until next time, keep seeking the light and showing the way.